On a day of dramatic events in Melbourne and in national politics. In Darwin too, the Territory government is on a knife edge. First, the allegations of a homegrown terrorism plot after a series of dramatic dawn raids across Melbourne. Federal and state police, with ASIO, say they foiled a plan to launch a major suicide attack on Australian Army bases after a 7-month investigation dubbed Operation Neath. 4 Australian citizens of Somali and Lebanese descent have been arrested, and a 5th man, already in custody, is also being questioned. It's alleged the men have ties to the militant Somali Islamist group Al-Shabaab, an organisation some experts claim has links to Al-Qaeda. Matt Peacock reports.
Australia remains a gold medal target for Al-Qaeda.
It's something that's been going on for a while, and in a way it's surprising that this hadn't happened previously.
The threat of terrorism is alive and well, and this requires continued vigilance on the part of our security authorities.
For 7 months, state and federal police and intelligence agencies have mounted a massive surveillance operation. Today they struck, launching pre-dawn raids on 10 houses to prevent what they allege was a plot to launch suicide attacks against Australian Army bases. In court, one man appeared this afternoon charged with conspiring to commit an act in preparation for or planning a terrorist act. Federal police were granted another 8 hours to question the other men arrested about evidence gathered from their mobile phones and text messages.
Police will allege that the men were planning to carry out a suicide terrorist attack on a defence establishment within Australia involving an armed assault with automatic weapons. Details of the planning indicated the alleged offenders were prepared to inflict a sustained attack on military personnel until they themselves were killed.
The alleged plot spans the globe from Melbourne to Mogadishu, where the radical Islamic group Al-Shabaab has clawed back control of much of southern Somalia since the US-backed Ethiopian invasion 3 years ago.
The Al-Shabaab movement found safe haven in Eritrea and has subsequently been receiving aid, arms, logistical support from the Eritrean government, and has since pushed back into Somalia, now controls large sections of southern Somalia, central Somalia, and also the capital.
Somalia's been a failed state for decades, with suicide bombings, piracy and abductions commonplace, including the kidnapping last year of Australian journalist Nigel Brennan. Al-Shabaab, which is Arabic for young men, has some links to Al-Qaeda, according to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute's Carl Ungara.
Al-Qaeda certainly is a different organisation from what it was a few years ago. It's not the same centralised organisation that we knew of it back in the 1990s. It's actually devolved to many of these affiliate groups, such as Al-Shabaab, who've been named as potential, as organisers in this case. But they follow the broader Salafist ideology, but they will act independently of Al-Qaeda's sort of operational plans.
The Al-Qaeda mastermind behind the 1998 bombings of the US embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam is now believed by US intelligence to be working with Al-Shabaab. While Al-Shabaab has been proscribed as a terrorist organisation in the US, that's not the case in Australia.
We know that Al-Shabaab have recruited young Somali who are actually United States citizens from America, sent them over to Somalia to fight in the wars over there. And it's not so that they can take part in any greater cause, it's so they can learn how to fight and learn those skills that they may be able to use at a later date.
Young Somalian men is vulnerable to be recruited by anyone, by any fundamentalists, because some people are coming through the religion, telling them to make a jihad. They are misinterpreting what does jihad mean.
Almost 5,000 Somalis have settled in Australia to escape the violence in their own country. According to Abdul Rahman Jama Osmond, a spokesman for the Victorian community, today's news has shocked them.
My community is a peace community, is a good people, but what if one or two people have done a mistake? You don't have to take for all of the people in this world. I'm telling the Australian community that we are Australians, we are abide by the law of Australia, we are getting help, we are giving help to the police by investigating this kind of...
That's a message that was echoed today by Victoria's Police Commissioner, Simon Overland.
We understand that the overwhelming and vast majority of people of Islamic faith are not terrorists. They do not support terrorism. They have successfully integrated into our community. We work very collaboratively and very effectively with them, and we will continue to do so.
Police allege that surveillance had already been conducted of Holsworthy Army Base in Western Sydney, home for some of Australia's special forces and a predictable target, according to SAS veteran and international security specialist Paul Jordan.
Perhaps, I guess, by having Australian men and women in the Defence Force killed or injured, it may bring extra pressure to bear on the Australian government to question why we're actually involved in these issues overseas.
Despite today's arrests, experts warn that an underlying threat remains.
Australia has to understand that it is a terrorist attack on home soil is a real possibility.
That report from Matt Peacock.